All right, good afternoon. Today is MS Office Hours. I am David Perlman, and with me
is Heather Cox.
fantastic of the modern workplace here at Microsoft. And with us today is Kyle Bennett on MS Office Hours. So Kyle, welcome. I understand you're from the University of Wisconsin. You went to school there. I'll let you do your own intro, but you have the floor for the next 25 minutes or so, and maybe leave a couple of minutes at the end for questions. All righty, floor is all
Sure.
yours.
Awesome. Thanks, David. Yeah, as you mentioned, I am from the University of Wisconsin, Stevens Point, specifically. Yeah, I went to school here, graduated, worked as a temporary employee for several years, and then finally got hired as full-time. During all that time, I worked heavily in SharePoint 2010 environment and InfoPath, and working with the Office environment. And then as Office 365 got rolled out, I became heavily involved with the Office 365 environment and finding solutions for campus. So on campus, we have licensings of A3 for all of our faculty. So that provides me a really great opportunity to be able to create items for these faculty members and not have to worry really about sharing or permissions or anything. I can know that because they're part of our UWSP organization, that they're able to have credentials that can access some of the content. So I'm going to begin sharing here. So what I wanted to do today is kind of go over some simple use cases of what I have encountered at UWSP and what I did to kind of create as a solution. So I tap into a lot of Microsoft 365 products, and it depends on what I'm trying to accomplish to be able to find solutions. So some of them are very rapid and quick solutions that can be implemented within a day. But then as we go on into this, I'll show you the inventory app that David kind of alluded to at the beginning of the questions part that really dives into Power Apps and what kind of functions you can do with those in the Power environment. So let's kind of look at some of these use cases. The first one I have is I wanted to bring up Yammer just because it's a newer application that's being brought into Office 365, and I thought it was a pretty unique use case we have here that we are able to enable or use. So in spring, with the advent of COVID, every college student got sent home at the beginning of spring break, and we never came back. The downfall of that is we traditionally host College of Letters and Science Symposium, so the undergrads can really show off some of their products. So what we were able to do is bring that online, and what I did was use the basic static web page so to be able to bridge people to Yammer. So you can see here we have links of people that are their posters and their audio, and if you click any of these links, each link leads to Yammer, and that allows us to be able to have a community that is kind of controlled within UW Stevens Point. We didn't have to rely on Facebook and then give all of our data to Facebook. We're able to keep it within Stevens Point and be able to create the kind of community environment that you would see with being able in person. So we're able to have comments, and you can see here we actually have communications going on. But this allowed for a great bridge to people because then you can press back button and be able to have a listing of the different types of posters that are available. So it was a good way to ease people into Yammer while introducing them to that community. Next, we had a search and screen for the deans. This was extremely last minute, but that's why I kind of wanted to throw this in, was to show you how flexible Microsoft Office 365 tools can be. So I got a request that we wanted to be able to have a feedback form so that anybody who watched this open stream would be able to give feedback on for our assistant dean search. So what I did was the person that was hosting the search and screen, they recorded the video, they sent me the URL, they shared it with me through their OneDrive, and then I just uploaded that to Microsoft Stream, shared it with the entire university so everyone had access, and then they're able to immediately jump into giving responses to that form. So they're able to immediately jump into the video too if they didn't see it, and then be able to provide feedback. And this was extremely quick and easy to throw together, but it's really nice because all of our faculty and staff have the A3 licensing, so I don't have to worry to make sure that everyone has the correct form. It's just all live and ready available for everyone. So next one I'm going to jump into here is the content relation management. So this is going to be diving more into the Power Apps environment. And every one of these Power Apps environments that I'm using, I'm heavily also relying mostly on SharePoint to be able to use the SharePoint list to be able to control and hold data and manipulate it as needed. So let's actually bring this one open here. So what I was able to do here is this is actually working within Microsoft Teams. So here you're going to see that most of my products now is brought into the Microsoft Teams because we're working heavily in Microsoft Teams now at the University of Stevens Point, especially in the College of Letters and Science college. So most of everything I build now, I'm actually providing it for a team so that it's a one-stop shop for each department and no one has to remember these URLs anymore. And what the our Citadel team does here is they want to be able to record everything, every interaction with their customers. So they're often doing, oh, and Citadel, by the way, represents the Center of Inclusive Teaching and Learning. So they're constantly doing one-on-one consultations with faculty and staff. And the manager over there, they wanted to be able to get data, but they didn't have all these meetings recorded because it was in individuals' their own Outlook calendars that they were booking these. So what I did was I provided this dashboard for them. So the agents that are going and doing these classroom or these one-on-one assessments are able to bring up their personal Outlook calendar, be able to see the type of appointments that they have, be able to choose the appointment, and here they can add additional notes. So they can be able to choose what kind of consultation it is, or if it is an event, be able to choose what event it is, be able to add additional notes if they want, and be able to make people a consultant or an attendee to be able to record all of that data. And the nice thing is that provides some nice data then, so then the faculty manager over there can search for a customer, see exactly how many times of they've contacted their department and be able to actually get meaningful data from that. Next use case I have here is going to be the content search system. So this one is a little bit newer of a project we're doing, but it's pretty unique here. So let's open up that team. So here what we're doing is what they were doing is they had file folders and just a different structure of file folders of different photos or articles. So it may be the College of Letters and Science would be a directory, and then within the College of Letters and Science would then be the 2020 symposium, and then you have to just kind of be able to know where to drill down. This was meant to be able to upload that content and be able to find items much more rapidly. So what happens is after they create an article, or they want to be able to save some of their images, they create a project name, and they are able to take these items here, attach files. So if we throw in a picture here, they can then upload all the files. This is actually using Microsoft Flow in the background to start uploading the files. I give them that warning note just so that they can be able to skip beyond it if they don't want to wait for all the images to get created. And then they are able to actually start to search by these tags. So it's pretty nice to be able to tag the content that you're loading. And what's happening is on the back end, when they go to submit one of these items, is it's submitting a single item to a SharePoint list. And when that have a flow monitoring that list, and whenever there is a new item created, it then goes and takes each attachment, uploads it to a document library, and it also then tags these additional fields onto them. So if you have 5 images, it will upload each one of those images into the document library, in addition to being able to tag the necessary tags onto that item. All right, so like I said, we are going to be getting a little bit more complex. So the next thing is going to be diving more into the inventory system that I created, and that's kind of what David alluded to at the beginning of this meeting. So that I actually worked in IT computer labs for some time as an undergraduate, and I created an inventory system on SharePoint 2010. And when I got the position I'm in now as an academic technical services we kind of had it when I went to that department. I realized they had an inventory system just off of Excel, so I decided to revamp what they had with taking the knowledge of SharePoint 2010 and using SharePoint Online in addition to Power Apps. Began building that. We started to see some actual need for it. So what I created was not big enough to be able to expand to the college. So I actually took the time to revamp this and on my own time start to build out a structure of how can I build an actual asset management system for the university, because I've been finding that most of the products I build, people start to use it, then they want to use it for more departments. So it's better off to build it to be able to expand. So I started that pretty much in my basement, if you were. And we can kind of look at some of the powers that we're using here. So one thing that was really nice was new faculty and staff that come to our college, they need a new computer, or if it's a computer upgrade. So I've created this app instead of being able to do emails back and forth of what computers are offered, what kind of specs it has, this or that. They can pretty much just figure out for themselves exactly what they want and be able to navigate and order their computer. This allows us then to take this data and I on the back end be able to do a Microsoft flow then to roll their new product and name it, assign it to them and be able to keep a better asset management system, which we'll dive into here. So this is the one that I worked mostly on in the basement that will be able to expand pretty nicely. And it's got the ability to cover all of our colleges at UW-Stevens Point and then also our branch campuses also, which includes Wausau and Marshfield. So I started as a mobile app because the idea is we're constantly on the go, and if I'm ever in a room, I want to be able to quickly be able to see what's in that room or be able to help faculty determine what's even happening in that room and be able to manage all the assets within that building. So you can see that we have a list of the buildings. Each one of the buildings then is listed out, and I can search them if I wanted. I can jump into the building. I can see photos of it to help me locate where I am mentally. So when I'm having conversations with faculty, they say a room number, I can visually bring it up and understand what they're talking about. In addition, we can leave notes so that if eventually when our service desks be able to start using this data, they can see the notes and comments that we left for them, being able, for example, saying, projector is finicky. If this happens, make sure you restart it or something along those lines. You also can then see all the items that are tagged to that room. And if there is not an item, you can actually go and simply add that item, which we'll kind of go through. So if you were adding a microphone, we'll see then the types of models that we have. We can also add a microphone model if we needed. If we click the model and enter a test serial number, it first does a check to make sure that I'm not doing a duplicate serial number because duplicates of items is not good. And once we add that item, it's then asking for the metadata. So each one of the hardware equipment has different metadata that we want to be able to record. And that's based on whether it's a microphone, a display screen, a computer, or so on. And once we add that, we have the ability to then add a asset tag. And that becomes pretty helpful because what we have here is one thing feedback I did get is I need a home button. But one thing that we can do then is there's this handy search button, and that allows me to click this camera button when I'm on the go with my mobile phone and be able to scan a QR code, which is that asset tag. But I can't use the camera because I'm streaming right now, so we'll just kind of take a look at the search function. So the search function here that I have is it's searching all items, and you can actually break it down whether it's items, models, rooms, or buildings. So I chose a bad example because Albertson doesn't have much, but you get the gist of how this starts to work. So what would be nice then is you can use then that QR code to be able to scan and be able to see exactly where that item is. Or for example, how I hope to be able to use it is one of the things we do is a classroom call. And when what happens is somebody working in a classroom will give a phone call to say that they need IT support. And the idea is hopefully that we can use this application to not only fix the issue, but then QR can't scan the item that is an issue so that we can maybe see some patterns here of maybe our Extron IN 1608 is having an issue and we have to actually look at that and be able to get some meaningful data. Another part that we are starting to look at and expand more into then is Power BI. So what's really nice about all this Office 365 as environment is you can kind of do it in building block style. So I was able to start getting the Power App usable so our students and our staff were able to start getting information in there. And then immediately I can start to kind of play with their reports because you're able to use the Microsoft connectors, bring in whatever connectors you need for that application, and be able to start to manipulate the data depending on your app that you're using. So here is the start of some of our testing we were doing, or the reports that I'm providing for management. And we can break it down to by campus if we want. And then here you'll see by building, by room, we can start to get counts of how many cameras we have in the rooms. So for example, when COVID happened and we were scrambling for where we can get web cameras, well, this is a great way to be able to immediately see where we have web cameras. So the last thing I wanted to kind of talk about before I open up to questions is future projects. So kind of going on the theme of the building blocks is I mentioned being able to provide or start to implement this and integrate it within our classroom support. And you can kind of see what I'm also hoping to do with our faculty and staff that I work with. So let me go with another team here. So this is what I'm hoping to kind of provide then for our faculty and staff. So you can see on the left side here, one of my biggest summer projects was getting all of the College of Letters and Science departments into their own department team so that they can start collaborating with each other remotely, especially with the times given. And it gives them file repositories and able to immediately start to work as a team. So one thing I'm hoping to provide for them is a portal for IT almost where they can see this equipment in our asset management system that's assigned to them. So this is kind of rough view of a project that I did with just our chemistry team. They have some more elaborate equipment that is connected to instruments that is pretty important. So it is nice to be able to break it down by room if they needed, and then they're able to just immediately report an issue. And what we had at the time was footprints. So this would send an email to footprints and immediately figure out metadata for that customer. So they don't have to worry about what is the computer name. They can see it right off the bat. They don't need to know what room number. As soon as they report the issue, all of that is known. Awesome. So I think that pretty much wraps up what I have. So if we have any questions, I'd be definitely happy to answer.
There's always questions. So talk about kind of, you spoke a little bit about, show your management report, I think, that some of your leadership now asked you for. I think you started to talk about that, but I don't know if you showed that. You had some of the asset inventory where you could do some roll-up reporting using, I think, Power BI.
Sure. I have a couple here. So I'm going to open up Power BI to bring up my other report here. So as that's loading, I can show you a couple of other reports that we started. So in the
before the report, these are all the whatever the application. It is good to whoever it is like a coming new instrument, right? Which are already there, like thousands and thousands. It is not going to be useful, right? Because you need to enter manually everything.
I don't know if I fully were you talking about the IT chemistry and their reporting for their ticketing system?
No. I'm talking before going to the report, to enter into the repository, all the instruments. If you have like thousands of machine, it's already there. You cannot enter manually one by one, right, into the forms and get into the repository. This is useful when you starting a department like that, right?
I guess that the IT inventories that we used, so for entering all of the data for our inventory system.
So the question I think is this, Kyle, right? When you start, you know, it's one thing if you're doing this, you know, for a couple of departments, but how did you start getting all this data entered into for your campus into your into this inventory, IT inventory management system? Did you have some stuff that you ported over from another system, or was this I think this was an extension of some work you had started at the help desk. Can you elaborate on that maybe?
Sure. So yeah, so what happened was we had an Excel document that we started off of, but I didn't actually naturally import that to our system. The reasons why is because what we had was not sufficient to be able to build out to our entire campus. So what I did was I actually took a step back, and this is actually the layout of our entire inventory system. So what you see here is I have it grouped by each category. So I figured out, okay, what are the main components here in IT that we want to cover? And I worked with teammates to determine some of these main categories I see up here, such as computer, displays, printers, projectors. And once we figured out these main categories, so video sources is a good one because we have a couple of different categories here. So each column you see in the video sources category is a device type. So in this device type, we have video players such as VHSs, DVDs, Blu-rays, and DVDs. The next column over under the video sources category is the digital signage players. So like the signs that are at the cafeteria that show the menus or advertisements in the hall and such. So then each one of these then is a separate column. So it was actually a ton of work to dismantle the old Excel spreadsheet and to start figuring out, all right, what area does this actual category fall under, and determining if we had every category filled out.
And so like in any large data, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So great question. So in any large project, right, sometimes they start off small and they continue to grow, Kyle. And I think that's what happened here. And there's a lot of SharePoint behind this. Maybe when we get done with just showing the reports real quick, I think it's great, right? When instead of just reinventing this, using the same data that you had, you actually did a reclassification of that data, right? Normalized that data, and then you actually made it useful for people instead of sitting in an Excel spreadsheet. So when you know your director says, "Hey, what the heck have we been doing?" you can now pull up a couple of these reports, which all of a sudden now they start asking you about, right?
Yep. So yeah, so one really nice part is this is one report that I jumped on for a quick second here. So being able to determine the amount of items we have in an area was been huge for COVID, and that's why this one's the main one that's reporting. So that we could be able to start determining, all right, can we actually pull a document camera from because a faculty member needs it, and then immediately you can start to figure out what room you might be able to pull that item from. But in addition, these are ones that I'm starting to play around on. So one that's going to be good is this is a kind of a dashboard that I was working on that's going to be more elaborate as we go forward. But we can see here then the number of classroom computers in each of not only campus, but by building and then even by room here and be able to drill in. So immediately we can see then we have the most computers that are going to need servicing within the science building and be able to actually start to play around with some of these metrics. So most of our Marshfield data is not really entered. So you can see here that's very little data. A couple of other ones that were just kind of fun was our Active Directory, being able to do a drill pie with the Active Directory, which management seemed to really like for whatever reason, but you can jump in and start to see how many objects are in each one. And then another one was, since I don't have a direct link right now with our Active Directory, one thing I was doing is providing a report here that does a check to see if the host name I have in our inventory system lines up in our Active Directory. And if not, I can see a warning here and start to be able to figure out where I'm having problems.
Great. Awesome. So there's one thing, I don't know if anybody from the community has any questions. We have a couple minutes left. You know, I love the use of the multiple tools. So if you go back to your starting slide, Kyle, in the sway.
Sure.
Okay, so if you don't know what sway is a tool, you own it, right? It's a great way for presenting lots of diverse information. I think Heather was a big fan of sway. Take us back to just quickly kind of run down through the various Office 365 tools that you were using. I think you called them out in that first slide.
No problem. So yeah, I use quite a bit of them depending on the use case. So being able to do the symposium, we literally only use the static website and Yammer. Created a community in Yammer, got the URL links for the images, and then just posted those URLs on the static website. So it's very quick to put together. Another one I used was Microsoft Forms and Stream in collaboration. So I needed a video to be able to host somewhere. Instead of YouTube for the entire world to see, I chose Stream so that only people within our organization would be able to access it. Slap that URL for that stream onto the description for the form, and then just push out the form for everyone, and they have access to not only the response form, but then the video. And then from there, I really dive into Teams, SharePoint, Power Apps, and Flow. So the more you dive into these projects, the more you'll integrate these four together, especially then with Power BI being the fifth to report out. A lot of these, they start to integrate depending on your project. So if you want to start automating things, all of a sudden you're throwing in Microsoft Flow, but it really starts with Power Apps, what I'm trying to do, and then SharePoint to start keeping lists of things, and then making it easier for users to get to this content by providing it into a team.
Awesome, Kyle. So why don't we open, I'm going to stop the recording and then we'll do a little bit of Q&A here. So let me, great job, Kyle. Heather, did you learn something new?
Yeah, sorry, mute took forever. Yes, I always learn something new. I am a super fan of taking